Hey everybody, Johnny R2 here, and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. When we last left off, we got Rolly to admit that he moved the crime scene from the west side of the street, Briar Road I believe, to the east side. And the reason he did that is because he wanted to spend the afternoon with his wife, or the evening rather, because it was their anniversary. But in doing so, he has befuddled the whole investigation and almost got our client accused of something he didn't do. Let's continue on and see what his explanation is. When we first ran over to the scene, the victim was already holding the book. So when I moved everything, I made sure it was still in her hand. You're sure it was this book, The Lion's Pride, that the victim was holding? Oh yes, sir. No doubt about it, sir. Huh, interesting. The fourth book's information has been updated in the court record. A book entitled Lion's Pride that was in the victim's hand when Mrs. Beat first ran over to see what had happened. I thought it was an open and shut case at the time, you see. There were only the two people at the scene, and Pat and me both saw it happen. However, which way you looked at it, it had to be the fellow who ran off who'd done it, I thought. I couldn't see the harm, really. I didn't think moving it all over the road would make a jot of difference. I suppose this is it for me now. I've had it. My lord. Yes, Lord Van Zykes? I believe that concludes the cross-examination of the witnesses. Constable, you may withdraw. Yes, sir. Mr. Prosecutor, sir? What will become of my Rolly? What will happen to him? For now, you are free to go home. The police will contact you in due course. Please, don't punish my husband. This was all my fault. It's because I'm always moaning at him for coming home late. Leave it now, Pat. Let's go home. I'm tired. All right then, my love. One last thing, Constable. Sir? Let this be a lesson to you. In a criminal investigation, every detail matters, however insignificant it may seem to you. Yes, sir. Carve that lesson in your mind. And never again make the mistake of tampering with the scene of a crime. Never again, sir? You mean to say? Leave now. This trial is not yet over. Sir. Did we just sense some, compassion from Lord Van Zykes? Well, quite a startling revelation, I must say. Whoever thought of a third party transplanting the entire scene of a crime like that? Indeed, my lord. Nevertheless, there are some immutable facts here. Principally, that the accused, Mr. Soseki Natsume, is the only person who could possibly have committed this crime. No, that's not a fact.
Objection!
No, I disagree. Now that we know the true scene of the incident, there is someone else. Another person who could be responsible for the knife in the victim's back. Forgive me for being presumptuous, but I believe the prosecution is probably well aware of this possibility already. Lord Van Zykes, is this true? Losing my voice, sorry. Very well. Name the person, if you will, and if further investigation is warranted. The prosecution has no objection to the trial continuing. Alright, it's the Mrs. Garda. You will name this other person who could have perpetrated the crime. Mrs. Garadeb, present.
Take that!
The defense would once again like to request a cross-examination of a new witness, my lord. Once again? My assistant made the same request earlier. In order to finally reveal the truth about this case, it is imperative that we cross-examine juror number 4, Mrs. Joan Garadeb. Me? Me? Oh, dearie me.
Objection!
That request has already been denied.
Objection!
But the situation is very different now. Mrs. Garadeb, answer me this. What do you want now, you little toad? At the time of the incident, you were engaged in a violent argument with your husband, Mr. John Garadeb. In the course of the argument, a minor house fire was ignited, and to clear the smoke from the room, your husband opened a window that looks out over Briar Road. Well, what of it? You threw this book at your husband when he was cornered with his back against the window. Upon striking the pane of the open-top hinged casement window, the book plummeted directly down, finding its way to what we now know to be the true scene of the incident. Yes, and as I said, what of it? During the argument, you were beside yourself with rage. As such, you threw not just books, but anything you could lay your hands on. So let me ask you one more time, Mrs. Garadeb. This knife, the one removed from the victim's back, have you really never laid eyes on it before? I don't recall it. Seriously? Am I supposed to remember everything I picked up and threw at my husband? And anyway, the man over there and all that regalia said members of the jury needn't testify, didn't he? Conveniently, yes.
Objection!
No, I have no recollection of saying that at all, juror number 4. Are you on our side now? Do you really want to know what happened now? I think we got you on our side now. Oh. Make no mistake, you jurors are not special in any way. You are not immune to the judicial process. If you know something about this knife, madame, let the truth come out. But that's just a common or garden knife. It could have come from anywhere. We have several like that at home. If one went missing, how would you expect me to know? What's that? Are you joking? What are you saying? Please, Mrs. Garadeb. Now you listen to me. I refuse to believe all this nonsense. I couldn't bear the thought that I'd injured someone. Did you hear? I couldn't bear it. Oh, the poor woman. So, yes, I want evidence. I want to see hard evidence if you're going to insist on this being my fault. You're going to have to prove to me that I threw that knife if that's what you think. Come along now, chop chop. Do your worst. Well, Mr. Naruhodo? If I had evidence like that, believe me, I would have thrown it at her already. Then take the stand, juror. Oh. The prosecution does not object to the defense's request to cross-examine this woman. Thank you, Lord Van Zykes. I'm going to have to testify? Juror number 4. As I'm sure you will appreciate, having observed it with your own eyes today, witness testimony can lead to the most extraordinary truths being unearthed. Truths of which the witnesses themselves may not even have been aware. Oh, dearie me. So I demand your full and unadulterated testimony, Mrs. Garadeb. And mark my words, In this court of law today, we shall extract the truth. Do you concur, counsels? Certainly, my lord. Oh, that's what I'm hoping for, my lord. I think we got him on our side. We've got Lord Van Dykes on our side. This is such a strange feeling. For the first time since arriving in this country, it actually feels real. I'm here in the Old Bailey, and I'm a lawyer. There she is. She's even got her tea. Witness, state your name and occupation. Oh, yes, my name is Joan Garadeb, and I'm, well, I'm a juror and such like. Sounds like even she doesn't know if she's a housewife or a maid. Or what anymore. The court has decided your testimony is required in order to clarify matters in this case. Do you understand, madam? Yes, my lord. You will tell the court everything that took place in your household on the evening in question. And I warn you, do not attempt to hide the truth. Oh dearie me. Chin up, Johnny. Nothing to worry about now. Is that, Mr. Garadeb? Yep, that's Mr. Garadeb. Oh, I didn't know you were here, John. How did he get here? Wasn't only you in the room that day, old thing, was it? Oh, look at her looking at him. Rather think I ought to testify as well, don't you? But what about your knee, dear? Don't you worry about that. Hardly notice it. I'm not the sort of chap to leave a comrade to face disciplinary action alone. Oh, John, not Joan. I presume you are Mr. John Garadeb? Yes, sir, former second lieutenant of the 3rd Regiment of the 4th Northumberland Fusiliers? Sir, seen my fair share of action and now living the quiet life, as it were. The quiet life? Were you not engaged in an incendiary battle with your spouse on the day in question? Ah, well, yes. Quite. I believe this may represent a first in the proud history of the British court. Calling a juror to the witness stand is unprecedented. However, the court will hear your testimony now, juror number 4, and that of your husband. You will recount clearly and concisely the events in your home at the time of the incident in question. Sir, at once. The Battle of Garadeb. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason now. What do you mean, can't recall? You know the reason. Knocked a candlestick over and set a fire to the carpet. Soon had it out, though, and we got the window open. Meanwhile, I was picking up whatever I could find to throw at him. Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd notice if 1 or 2 went missing, I'm afraid. If that bally thing were in the victim's back really was one of ours, you'll have a job proving it, I think. Sounds as though it was quite the battlefield in your house that evening. Although, an entirely one-sided assault, it seems. The enemy caught us on the hop, sir. Had no choice but to dig in and take defensive measures. To be honest, if the enemy had kept shelling us for another minute, we'd have been toast. Of course, a veteran such as myself is only too aware that on every battlefield you're just a gnat's whisker from death at any moment. Are we still talking about a marital quarrel here? Well, I must say I'm dubious that this testimony will shed any light on the origins of this jackknife. In combat, one's focus narrows such that surroundings are barely noticed. These witnesses may not be able to offer anything more than that they have testified already. This may be a dead end. Ben Sykes may well be right. Well, whatever the chances, we only have this last cross-examination to uncover the truth, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, I'm afraid so. Very well, counsel. Begin your cross-examination. Cross-examination. The Battle of Garadeb. Fight. Yes, on the day you're referring to, the wife and I did have a bit of a skirmish. Can't recall the reason. Really, you know the reason. Press. The reason is what you told us yesterday, I believe. Yes, that's right. If I remember correctly, it all started because of a note that was tucked into the pages of a book belonging to Mr. Garadeb. A rather passionate note, in fact. But Mrs. Garadeb found the note, discovering her husband's little secret. And she gave him a mighty number of slaps across the face for it, too. What a sordid state of affairs. Hell on earth. I say, when a chap says he can't recall such things, it's common decency not to drag it all up. And besides, half of it was wide off the mark. Wide of the mark, anyway. A likely story. These waters run very deep. And what transpired next after these multiple blows to the face? Knocked a candlestick over and set fire to the carpet. She had it out, though, and got the window open. Soon had it out, not she. Soon had it out, though, and got the window open. Press this. And the fire also spread to some items of furniture, didn't it? The bookcase, my armchair, anything of mine, really. Just so happens there was some bath water around that evening, so I sloshed that about to put it out. A most precarious situation you put yourself in. Ours is a 3-story townhouse on the west side of the street where the water main isn't connected yet. Having to draw water from a public water pump during the day if you need any, you see. Or have to. The lodgers are always moaning that they can't get any water at night. Although, that little mustached Japanese man buys water in bottles, I believe. The defendant, Mr. Natsume, you mean? Yes, he receives a stipend for his studies, you know, from his home country. Can you imagine being able to brew a pot of tea at all hours? He's obviously very well off. Have you actually seen the state of the man? I believe he uses all of his income to buy books. Well, anyway, the point is, I was able to douse the fire with water, fortunately enough. Okay, I believe that. Meanwhile, was picking up whatever I could to throw at him. Yes, you were, including a knife. Hold it! Even though the room was on fire? As far as I was concerned at the time, it was more important to extinguish my anger than the flames. When a woman wants to throw, she must throw. That is most certainly not true of Susato Takedown, Mr. Naruhodo. How did she know I was thinking that? So, please cast your mind back and try to remember. Was a knife among the items that you threw at your husband that day? In all honesty, I don't recall. But I feel I must point out that I'm no monster. Let me see. Some bread, a cabbage, garlic, a towel, and a sponge.
By Jupiter!
A napkin. By Jupiter.
Excuse me!
Do you have something to add, sir? Mr. Garadeb. Don't shoot. I'm sorry, I beg your pardon? Did your wife's remark just now bring something to mind? Nothing of any significance, no. Just that the barrage of projectiles the old thing launched in my direction was somewhat more solid than she implies. Books, bricks, and the fire poker, I seem to recall. Ouch. And the woman's aim is uncanny. She poured it into his pipe? Good grief, woman. We're not at home now. This is a court of law. Oh, dearie me. Ever so sorry, dear. What's she even doing with the teapot in here? Well, the other dude had a gun. Honestly, John, I would never have thrown such things at you, obviously. Well, take a look at this then. How do you suppose that happened, huh? Your pipe, sir? Had this thing in my hand as usual at the time of the onslaught. Knocked it clean out with one of her soft projectiles, she did, yes. And when I went to pick the thing up, it was broken in two. I'd like to see a sponge that could do that sort of damage. I see. Your pipe was broken. It would never have been sent flying unless it was hit by something pretty solid. Anyway, I've managed to bandage the thing up for now. You're one to exaggerate, aren't you, dear? I wonder what we should make of this account. It could be important? The defense believed Mr. Garrideb's remarks just now to be of great significance.
Objection!
This war veteran's words only tell us one thing. Betray a fiery wife, and pipes, as well as hearts, may be broken. Sentimental wisdom, perhaps, but hardly worthy of adding to the formal testimony. Indeed, common sense, one might say. No, the fact that she was throwing heavy objects is what I was talking about. That seems to be of note. Might one? In that case, would you at least permit us to examine the pipe, sir? Well, I don't see why not. Oh, dearie me. There you go again, trying to ingratiate yourself with a young lady. Very well. Court will accept the gentleman's pipe as evidence. Is the tip of the knife going to be in the pipe? Pipe has been entered in the court record. Mr. Garrideb's pipe, apparently it fell to the floor during a domestic dispute he had with his wife and broke. I hope I didn't speak out of turn, Mr. Naruhodo. I don't think you did. You never speak out of turn. You're amazing. You should probably be the lawyer. All right, let's look at his pipe. Show me. Come on. Really? It's right there. Oh, something just twinkled inside the chamber of the pipe there. Yes, I saw it. Something stuck in there, I think. Let's turn it over and give it a shake. What's this? It's a tiny fragment of metal. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Surely it couldn't be. The fragment of metal has been entered into the court record. Alright. Do we need to see anything else with the pipe? It looks to be in a sorry state with that bandage around it, doesn't it? But for some reason it feels slightly ominous to me, like it's trying to shout out a warning. Probably because it's the same blue as Mr. Garrideb's dressing gown. I suppose it must have considerable sentimental value to Mr. Garrideb, given that he's gone to the trouble of repairing it like this. Either that or he can't afford to replace it. I think he can't afford to replace it. Let's look at this small piece of metal. Looks like it might be the tip of a knife blade. It was stuck inside the bowl of Mr. Garrideb's pipe. This is a tiny piece of metal we found in the chamber of Mr. Garrideb's pipe. It looks like the tip of a blade or something. The tip of a blade? Something wrong, Mr. Naruhodo? I don't really know. There's just something niggling me, but I can't quite put my finger on what it is. Perhaps in that case, it would be wise to examine some of the other pieces of evidence again. Yeah, the tip of the knife that we've already seen. Maybe we didn't remark on it. Open it up. Oh, look here, Mr. Naruhodo. Just at the tip. A small piece of the blade appears to be missing. Wait, part of it's missing? I could be wrong, but I've just got a feeling. You remember this? Ah, that's the tiny fragment of metal that we found inside Mr. Garrideb's pipe. Yes, and just maybe, Oh my, it's a perfect fit. Somehow, I just knew it. All right. Can we say that? Just feeling rather disappointed for you that your request was turned down. Oh no, it's fine. Thanks to Susato-san, we have some new evidence to work with. We should examine it carefully. Already did. Well, thank you for that. Rebuttal, Mr. Garadeb. Now, if we could return to the crux of the matter. What can you tell the court about the knife used to attack the victim? Plenty of knives around our place. Can't say I'd notice if one or two went missing, I'm afraid.
Hold it!
Sorry? Would you care to elaborate? Nothing to say, really. Rather partial to a spot of carving, you see, pipes and whatnot, fishing tackle, you know, the sort of thing. It's a passion we both share. I like to carve little wooden trinkets too. And then there's my leather work. Sorry to say, we're always losing knives about the place, and we have dozens of the things. They sell them at the market sometimes, 20 for the price of 19. Needless to say, I snap them up. John prefers to use 2 knives at meal times too, instead of a knife and fork. Now, John, we don't want people thinking I'm some kind of sap. Urge! Here we go again with the scaldings. Why are they being so evasive? I imagine it's because they don't want to believe it. They can't bear the thought that it might have been one of their knives that injured the victim. Which is entirely understandable, of course, but still. Go on with your testimony, witnesses. Sir, if that bally thing were in the victim's back was really one of ours, you'd have a job proving it, I think. Let's press this. So you have no intention of admitting it was your knife, unless we can produce proof? Even though there is no other credible possibility of Mr. Natsume is innocent.
Objection!
You forget, my Nipponese friend. It is yet to be established that the accused is not responsible for the attack. As if I could forget. If only there was some way to know who had handled the knife. But I suppose wizardry like that is just a dream. No, we already know. Perhaps you're thinking of fingerprinting, Mr. Naruhodo? What? You mean it's not a dream? That sort of wizardry really exists? Whenever people touch anything, they leave behind a unique pattern from their skin, or so they say. But I can't see anything. There are already countries in the world where these so-called fingerprints can be used as evidence. Lord Strongheart is currently discussing the matter at the Ministry of Justice. Yes, I believe we are rapidly approaching an era of scientific methods of investigation. But for now, we shall have to find an alternative method of proving our assertion. That this knife found in the victim's back was originally in Mr. and Mr. Garadeb's house. If only I could transplant this whole incident to several years in the future. That's the extent of their testimony, is it? What do you think, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, I think we've heard all this before, to be honest. I can't say I'm particularly confident we'll be able to prove anything new from this testimony. How can you say that? We literally have the tip of the knife that was stuck in his pipe. But in this cross-examination, it is absolutely essential that we establish how this knife came to be at the scene of the incident. Yes, I know. I'm sure both of them must be feeling very worried. Worried that it was in fact a knife belonging to one of them that caused the victim's injury. If we could find even a tiny shred of evidence to support that theory, it would clinch this trial for us. It would explain everything. Yes, it would. So for Soseki-san's sake, we must. We must find that last crucial piece of evidence. I did! The question is when to present it. And I think we're going to go... No, not now. We're going to go over to the last statement where he's talking about proving. You'll have a job proving it. Will I, though? What about this?
Objection!
Mr. Garadeb, could I ask you to take a good look at this, please? You can ask, but I can't see a bally thing. You can't? Used to call me Dead-Eyed Deb back in the regiment, of course, but that was some time ago now. Even when I'm trying to enjoy a large print book by the fire these days. I struggle to tell a B from a D and a P from a Q, to be honest. Oh, he does, dearie me. It's rather wearying being asked about every other letter and every other word. You must D very dizzy. What is that? What is a man? A tiny scrap of metal? Yes, almost certainly from the tip of a blade. And we're going to leave you on this cliffhanger right here because that's going to be it for this episode. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my content, please consider a like, a comment, and or a subscribe. Stay tuned for the next episode. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.